Since the last episode, quite a few things have changed, not just in double bass world, but in general. This is one of the weirdest seasons of my entire life, so I promise I'll fill you in at the end of this video. But first, let's talk double bass. So I'm gonna open up with some good news, and that is that I think I'm officially done messing with my pedal setup. I found something that's gonna work for me long term, and I think the pedal configuration I have now is actually better than it was before I ever started this project. So this is my Pearl Redline Eliminator double pedal, but it is pretty far from the stock configuration. As you likely know, this is a chain drive pedal, which is the biggest difference between this pedal and the direct drive Demon XR that I started this series with. Now, because I started out so spoiled on the Ferrari that is the Demon XR, I wanted to make my Redline Eliminator feel a lot like it, at least as smooth and as light as possible. So here's some of the things that I did to make that happen. The first and the most obvious change was to swap the stock Redline felt beaters for the XR beaters. So the XR beaters are noticeably lighter, and I also really dig the sound of a harder plastic beater as opposed to felt. After that, I started experimenting with the cams, which are these colored components of the Redline pedals that are interchangeable. Now, each cam has a different shape, which dramatically changes the feel of the pedals. Pearl has conveniently put this chart on their website, and it outlines the physics that you can expect from each different cam. So I spent a while just messing around with the 4 included cams that came with my pedal, and I actually landed on one of the least popular models from what I've been reading. That's the blue cam. Now, it's very hard to describe why the blue cam stuck out for me, but if you have this pedal, you also have the 4 included cams. So my advice is just to try them all and see what works for you. The difference in feel between each cam was pretty big, pretty noticeable, so it's not hard to decide which one is right for you once you have them all in front of you. So after the cams and the beaters, I then swapped out the drive shaft, and this was something that tons of you guys actually recommended that I do. So the drive shaft of a double pedal is basically this long bar that connects the 2 pedals together, and functionally all drive shafts are going to do the same thing. But the Demon XR uses an upgraded drive shaft called the Z-Link, and it's the nicest one that Pearl makes as far as I know. Now, I wouldn't say that the Z-Link feels that much different than the stock Redline drive shaft, but remember that my left foot is probably too dumb to tell the difference, so keep that in mind. But off of the pedals, the difference between these 2 drive shafts is very obvious. The Z-Link just feels like a weapon. It's much beefier overall, and I'm sure that it would beat out a lot of other, stock drive shafts in terms of durability and lifespan, so I feel pretty good about keeping that on this pedal setup long term. So this exact configuration has been pretty much unchanged for several weeks, and I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I went down this wormhole, but I'm also glad to climb out of it, because as important as it is to think about your gear, I'm truthfully not that much of a gearhead. So I'm excited to be done with this portion of the project, and I learned a ton about pedals in the process. So in terms of practice, I've learned 2 really cool lessons the last few weeks that I want to share with you. If you've been playing a double kick for a while, these are probably going to be obvious to you, but they're new to me, and I'm a drum teacher, so I'm going to explain them anyway. So when we think about playing 2 bass drum notes very close to one another, I usually don't consider a double pedal to be necessary. If I need 2 fast kicks, and that's it, I'll take a single pedal all day. There's a lot of ways to get 2 kick drum notes very close together using only 1 foot, and I've always considered my right foot speed to be a strength of mine. I've even talked about this extensively in my foot speed boot camp, in my technique course, but having a double bass pedal on my kit for the last few months has showed me that as fast as my right foot diddles might be, I'm oftentimes prioritizing speed and neglecting to think about power. See, as fast as your doubles might be with 1 foot, you can't play 2 full volume kick strokes back to back with 1 pedal. Really, the closer those 2 notes become, or the faster you play them, the weaker each of those notes become. But that's especially true for the second note of a diddle on the kick drum. The closer it is to the preceding note, the weaker it's going to be. But this is something that can be totally solved with a double pedal. If you're using 2 separate pedals to play 2 separate notes, those kick drums can be really close together, and they can also come in at full power. Now, the reason that this concept came to mind is because I started messing around with this groove idea using a single pedal. So that groove is practically based around those repeating diddled kick drums, but at the right tempo, I can definitely pull it off with one foot. The problem is I can't speed the groove up. If I try to play it any faster, the power in my right foot is just pathetic, and it makes the groove lose a lot of feel.
not quite my tempo. It's all good, no worries.
So I wanted to rework that groove with a double pedal just to see if I could add some power to the kick drums and maybe speed it up as well. Now it turns out you can add both power and speed to the groove really easily this way. It's all the other stuff that's hard to maintain, like ghost notes or a general sense of freedom. But either way, I found it really interesting that this groove idea started with something that is totally playable on a single pedal, but now with the double pedal, I can ramp up the speed, I can ramp up the power, and it just changed my entire approach to the groove to give it a different sound. Pretty cool. The second thing I've learned in the last few weeks is the importance of balance. And maybe I should say I've just learned how much my own balance sucks, because the first thing that tipped me off to a balance issue was this hand on the snare drum thing. I normally never do this. I honestly thought it was just some kind of stylish mannerism of hardcore drummers. I mean, if you're putting your elbow or your armpit on the snare drum during a breakdown, that's a different story. But I never considered that there might be a reason that drummers put their hand on the snare. So for me, when this happens, it's like my body is going on autopilot to try and stabilize itself on the throne, and I notice it only happens when I'm doing something challenging with my feet. So to me, this was a sign that my body is feeling unstable, and it's intuitively looking for another anchor point. It's trying to hold on. And while it is super interesting that the body does that, I don't think it's optimal to have to stabilize yourself with your hands while playing drums. I think drummers who have been playing double bass for decades and they still do this, I think they're likely unaware of what's happening. But what do you think? Is the hand on the snare for balance a problem, or is it something that drummers should make peace with and move on? But here's where my balance issues became really apparent. When I try to play a quick triplet on my feet, just a right, left, right, I find that it's not totally reliable. Sometimes I can nail them, and other times they're just totally botched and come out wrong. But then I found a pattern. Every time these foot triplets get sloppy, it's when my right hand is over on the china. But when I move my right hand to the left side of the kit, so the left crash or even the hi-hats, those triplets on my feet become way cleaner and more consistent. At first glance, that doesn't make any sense. What does my hand position have to do with a foot pattern? Well, it's a balance thing. Anytime you extend a limb away from your body, you affect the balance of everything else. If you balance on one foot and you find yourself shooting your arms out to the sides to keep balance, you're displacing your weight, and that's a very natural way to adjust your balance and stabilize yourself. It's so natural that it happens involuntarily. Walking on a tightrope with that super long pole is kind of an extreme example of this same idea. So for some reason, when I extend my right arm to the left side of my kit, I create a specific balance in my body that just allows me to play those foot triplets much more consistently. Now, I don't have a detailed solution for you just yet, but in many cases, just identifying the problem that you're having on the kit is half the battle. So I'm now paying a lot more attention to my throne position and consciously maintaining good posture as well. I don't expect there to be a quick fix for something as serious as a balance issue, but it's something that I can chip away at over time. So those are the two big lessons that I've gathered since the last video. Right now I'm putting the finishing touches on the new metal song with Nick DiPiero, and it does look like that song's gonna come out in the first quarter of 2024. At the time of this recording, I'm just about to leave for Nashville to do a big session with Meinl, so I'll have tons of content coming your way soon. And by the way, I'm only recording one metal song on this trip, thank goodness, but I do have a few other awesome tracks cooking as well. Now, when I started this series, it was not my intention to leave big 6-week gaps in between episodes. But like I said earlier, life has gotten kind of wild for me, and I want to keep you guys in the loop. So right now, my wife Kelly is a little over 7 months pregnant, and our first daughter is due to be born in early March. Her name is Maple, and we've been trying to have a child for about 3 years, so we are extremely excited to welcome her into the world. I've remodeled our guest room into a nursery and spent way too much money on awesome baby things. We are pumped. But a few months ago, at one of Kelly's ultrasounds, we found out that Maple has a heart condition called TGA, or transposition of the great arteries. It only happens to about 1,000 babies every year in the US, and it's considered a pretty significant heart defect. There is a lot more to it than that, but open heart surgery on an infant is the takeaway. It is very scary, it's very expensive, and it's very complicated. Now, part of the reason that this whole thing has kept me so busy and so distracted is because we've decided to go to Atlanta for the birth, and that's about 500 miles north from where we live in Orlando. There's a cardiac team up there that specializes in the specific type of surgery that Maple needs, and to be honest, they're just better than anywhere in Florida. But the problem is, I don't know how long we're gonna have to be in Atlanta. It could be a few weeks, or it could be a few months. So between finding a long-term house sitter for all of my dogs and cats and chickens and goats, transferring all of Kelly's medical records, spending hours on the phone with insurance companies, it is really hard to think about making a YouTube vlog. And as much as I love you guys, everything in drum world falls short compared to this, obviously. So moving forward, I just ask for your patience as we try and sort all of this out. It is a long-term battle, logistically, emotionally, and financially, and we really don't know how all of this is gonna play out. Now, because I posted about this on Instagram a couple weeks ago, I know a lot of you guys are gonna ask if there is a GoFundMe, and the answer for now is no. It's not in my nature to ask for free money just because I have a personal challenge in my life. It is my problem, it is not yours. And maybe there will come a day when I ask for help if we need it, but we're not there yet. So in the meantime, if you want to support our family, I encourage you to check out OrlandoDrummer.com. It's my online drum school that I've spent over a decade building. About 90% of my income comes from memberships there. I only make about $300 a month on YouTube, so that doesn't quite cover the electric bill. And truthfully, that website is the only reason that I'm able to take so much time off of work and travel for Maple's surgery. You can try out the site for free for 2 weeks, and if you like the content there, you can stick around for less than $1 a day. In the meantime, we will take all of your good vibes, thoughts, prayers, magic spells, send them all. We could use them. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it as always. If you don't see episode 6 in the near future, it's probably because I'm in Atlanta, so make sure to subscribe to the Minel Symbols YouTube page and keep an eye out for a song called Eclipse by myself and Nick DePiro. Adam here, and I will catch you in the next one. Later.